Today is the 19th of September 2006, and this is Dr. Rosamond King here interviewing Dr. Lenrie Peters on the campus of the University of the Gambia. And we'll start with some easy questions. He could just tell us how you have begun to write, how you began to write.
Well, in the old days, my late father was an editor of the Gambian Echo, and I used to help him with his script writing. And in the evenings, when he was relaxed, he used to read the ancient classic authors to me. Because he went to Florida to do a degree, lost his hearing, and had to come down.
Okay.
But he still had his old books, Hebrew and Greek and Latin, and he used to read these authors to me. And I remember the phrase, the author is trying to say this, that, and the other. And that, of course, I suppose, it started with thinking about literature. But it wasn't until the British Council had an exhibition for a short story, which I won, that I, semi-seriously started to play pen to paper.
And were you still a youth at that time of that contest?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
So you started as a teenager? Or?
Oh, yes, when I was even younger.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And as you got older and you were writing more seriously, what would you say inspires you to write?
I think when I went to Cambridge, the competition of other writers, everybody thought they were geniuses. And I think this inspired me to go on writing. We never thought of writing as a career, that one to do it for earning money, which is something that you did when you retired, an extra curriculum study or something like that. That was the attitude we had to writing. It wasn't something that you lived on.
And although you haven't lived off of it, you certainly haven't put it off until retirement.
No. Well, because the inspiration comes from time to time. And you have your name there, it has to be kept, and you go on writing.
Do you have any particular, either individuals, whether that be your father or someone else, or particular writers that motivate you?
Well, I think that came much later, when I started writing more seriously and read a quite considerable amount of English and other literature. I think that came much later. But at the time there weren't anybody to inspire, except that my father put the idea into my head.
And then over the years, who would you say have been some of those people as you developed?
All the Greek writers, the Russians, Pasternak, Greeks, plenty.
It sounds as though you read as widely as you can.
Yes. I remember going through a very intense period of Proust, Marcel Proust in France, when I thought was one of the greatest novelists. But he's gone into decay now somewhat. But I still think that his research compared to one of the greatest books in the world.
And you mentioned that you write when you're inspired, which makes sense. But can you talk a little bit more about what your writing process is? Do you have particular rituals that you follow, or is it just whenever and wherever the mood strikes you?
When I was actively writing, I used to get up in the mornings and write for an hour or two in the mornings. That's the only way you could do a novel. But poems come when you're driving, at any time of day.
How much of your work, which now there's a substantial body of it, the novel and then the poems, would you say has its roots in your own autobiography?
Quite a lot of it, but not autobiographical, as so many people have suggested. The second round was written before I came back to Africa. I was in Europe, and it was purely imaginative, not autobiographical in any sense. But obviously, part of your life coming to it.
Certainly, certainly. Well, I guess then I must ask, after you did return, did life imitate art?
Well, in a sense, yes, because I then became more involved with African affairs and African thought and lifestyle and so on, since I've been there.
And what year was it that you returned again?
Sorry?
What year did you return?
80, what is that? 89.
So it was really after the bulk of your publications had been made.
Yes, that I came out.
And what would you say is, how do you go about editing your work?
I don't.
Okay.
No, once I've written, it's like delivering a child. That's another life to look after itself. I don't touch it after that.
All right, interesting. Well, we have 4 books by Lenrie Peters, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the story of the publication process, how the books actually went from being a manuscript that you typed up to being an object that we can hold in our hands.
Yes, the second round was written and sent to, it was called the second round because the first publisher sent it back, as usual. And then there was a chap called Keith Samrook at Heinemann who took an interest in it and said, you have to rewrite this, and I will work with you. And he was instrumental in getting it published as the second round. Thereafter, I wrote another one which they declined. They said it wasn't as good, and I didn't have time to rewrite it, so I put it aside. And later wrote a film script, because my brother was then in films, Lenrie Peters. And he'd just done something with Graham Greaves, get the name of the film. And so I wrote a little script for him, but nothing came of it. So the poems, the first book in fact came out in Nigeria, where Ulibaya and Graham Moore were working, and they brought out Mali publications. That's the first collection of poems. Now out of print, of course, actually.
Yes.
And I lost my only copy, but those were my earliest poems. And they just weren't asking for them. And then I decided I wanted to produce a poem called Royal Poetry, and I produced Satellites. And Satellites was the creation of my wanderings around the world, my thoughts. I chose the word satellite because I thought we'd go around the world trying things, experimenting, looking at different ways of doing things, and like satellites, no concrete paths to follow, but like satellites in the diaspora, and looking in on different aspects of life.
And then Kachikali was after that, yeah?
Kachikali, yes, that was inspired by the grove in Bakau, which you know. And I thought it was right to name it Kachikali, because then I was coming home and wanted something to identify with.
It's interesting to hear the story behind the titles of the books.
Yes.
Especially since a lot of your poems don't have titles.
They don't have titles.
Yeah.
I always thought that the poem should be self-explanatory. And if you can't understand what the poem is about, there's no point in writing it.
This is good. This is true. This is true. Would you say that there is any relationship between your job as a physician and your writing?
Of course, yes, yes. I think one inspires the other. As the experience of daily life in the theatre with patients and so on is part of the life experience, which also comes into writing. Yes.
It's for people who are familiar with medical terms. It's interesting because you reference this wide variety of texts from all over the world, as you were saying, Russia, British, and so on. But also there are these references to the medical field as well that come into the poem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always remember the one word diastolic, moment of change, which is the moment when the heart is waiting to receive the blood before actually pumping it. So I thought that growing up, one had a duty to people who were not familiar with sciences to introduce scientific jargon and ideas into my writing, since I had a foot in both camps, and perhaps that was overblown, I don't know. Yes.
Oh, very interesting. How would you describe your own style of writing?
I suppose it's a very personalized form of writing, but it aims at the universal. It's not idiosyncratic. It aims at the universal expression of ideas and feelings and so on. And I want to engage people in the thinking that's going on within me.
And I'm sure you've had the opportunity to share your work with audiences all over the world. What is that like? Most people don't get to have that experience in their life.
Well, that's very exciting. Because when one is younger, one lends oneself more to that sort of thing, reading publicly and so on. It was very exciting to exchange with people, sympathetic hearers of what your views in terms of the world. But because one gets older, one does less and less of that.
You mentioned the universal aspect of your writing, and on the back of one of the collections of poetry, they've quoted Egudu stating that of all poets of English expression, Peters is the least concerned about his country and the most concerned about the fate of the continent as a whole. He considers himself first an African and secondly a Gambian. And I would love for you to comment on this statement. Do you think that it was accurate then, and does it continue to be accurate?
I think probably it was accurate then. There were so many problems in Africa as opposed to the Gambia itself, which was not in the limelight. But I think I've changed since I've been president here to experience what's been going on. But I think to a large extent it was true at one time.
And since you brought up in an elliptical way the current state of the Gambia, I wonder if you can comment a bit about what you've seen, the changes over the years, and authors' relationship to it, whether you feel that authors now are comfortable criticizing the government, writing about politics, and so on.
No, I think people are getting more estranged from politics. As you know, criticism of the government doesn't go down well in any circumstances. But I think that very few authors have a reason who have openly criticized the government in my time. And I think more of this needs to be done to inspire the body politic. I think that we're too silent and too docile. This is what I feel about the African, that we accept too easily, unlike the Arabs.
Indeed, indeed. Have you read any of the scholarship on your